Today, I want to speak about self acceptance and the importance of self acceptance. When I started to accept myself as I am, my relationship with myself really changed significantly, and it made a massive change and impact in every other area of my life. And so, this has been a very, very powerful lesson for me, and I needed to share it with you today. Self acceptance is basically exactly what it says it is, which is to accept yourself fully, unconditionally. The reason why we sometimes struggle with this is because we don't always like every part of ourselves. We haven't really achieved what we wanted to achieve, or we haven't become who we thought we would become or who we wanted to become. Or maybe we have certain habits that we struggle to get out of, and that's maybe something we don't like about ourselves. Whatever it is that you don't like about yourself is usually what you push away. So there's an aspect of you, there's a part of you that you are rejecting, that you're pushing away. And what I've learned about this through doing this myself is that what you resist persists. So that part of you that you are rejecting and that you are busy pushing away, as a result of you rejecting that part of yourself and pushing that part of yourself down and pushing it away because you don't like it, that tends to continue and that tends to persist because you haven't been able to fully accept that part of yourself. How do you expect to change it? Right? So if there's a part of you that, for example, is lazy. So maybe you don't enjoy moving your body, but you are someone that wants to be healthy, and so you don't like that part of yourself that is lazy or perceived as lazy. But if you aren't able to accept where you are as a baseline, if you continue to reject that part of yourself, you'll never be able to bring resolution to that area. You'll never be able to change something if you don't first confront it and face it and accept and acknowledge that it's there. So it is extremely powerful when you start to accept yourself. You start to accept yourself unconditionally, every single part of yourself. Instead of rejecting it, instead of pushing it away, you accept it. And that's not to say that you need to be okay with it and that you don't need to try to change the parts of yourself that you don't like. It's more about focusing on first accepting where you are at. You don't have to like it, but you have to accept it. Because if it is what it is, then it is that way, and you denying it doesn't change it. So if you are someone that is a couch potato and you don't want to be a couch potato anymore, instead of being angry with yourself for being a couch potato, accept that you've gotten into a habit of being inactive, that you've gotten into a habit of being a couch potato. And that doesn't mean that you have to like it. All it means is that you have to accept it. You have to accept that part of yourself that you don't like so that you can work on changing it and creating new habits. Self acceptance is about accepting where you are at right now. And again, the reason why this is important is because if you already have that habit, if you already have this part of yourself that you don't like, it already is that way. And so you might as well accept that it is that way rather than resisting it and fighting it the whole time. So first you accept that it is that way, and then you can start to work on improving it and changing it. When you say to yourself, okay, I fully accept myself, you are no longer fighting with yourself, you're no longer guilting yourself, shaming yourself for this aspect of you. The reason you don't accept yourself is because you feel like that part of yourself needs to change before you will be acceptable or before you will be good enough. Before you are worthy of something good, you feel like you need to first stop being lazy. And so that whole cycle is now feeding into another cycle of self-shame or self-rejection, because then you start to judge yourself for the fact that you are lazy, right? So you're telling yourself that until this thing changes, I will not be good enough, I will not be worthy, and I will not be acceptable. But in the same breath, you're busy fighting with that aspect of yourself. You're busy rejecting that part of yourself. and so nothing changes. So another reason why self-acceptance is very hard is because we are so hard on ourselves. So speaking from experience, I've been a perfectionist before. I've been that person that was always striving for perfection, striving for things to be a certain way. And so as a result of that, I was very hard on myself, and I would put a lot of pressure on myself, and I would set a lot of unrealistic goals. And then when I'm not able to reach those goals, I would judge myself and give myself a hard time and beat myself up about it and perceive myself as a failure. And the reason that this is a toxic cycle is because you start to instill certain beliefs about yourself in your subconscious mind. And then, because of confirmation bias, which is something that we discuss in psychology, your confirmation bias is basically when your mind automatically seeks to confirm whatever belief you have about yourself. So if you believe that you're not good enough and you believe that you're not worthy now, then your mind will seek to reinforce that belief. It will look for information that confirms that belief to you so that you can perpetuate that belief that you're not good enough and that you're not acceptable as you are now. And then that keeps you in that negative frame of mind about yourself. It keeps you in that negative state of being in terms of how you view yourself. And then you start to perpetuate the belief that you are a failure and that you are not good enough the way you are, and that you need to change before you can be considered good enough. And then this, of course, just ends up being a very negative relationship with yourself. You know, slowly you start to self-destruct, and then that can get very toxic and very dangerous. So that's another important thing to look at, is the beliefs you have about yourself. Do you believe you need to change who you are in order to be loved? Are you busy rejecting yourself and judging yourself? And sometimes it comes from rejection from others or judgment from others that we then internalize, and then we build beliefs off of someone else's perception of ourselves. So it's very important to always be aware of what beliefs you have about yourself, because your beliefs a lot of the time impact your behavior, and it impacts the action that you take or don't take. So your beliefs about yourself are extremely powerful and extremely important. So the more negative beliefs you have about yourself, the more negative, results you'll find in your life, because you already have that baseline belief about yourself that is negative. And so it becomes harder to achieve anything positive when you don't believe that about yourself, when you don't believe you're capable of doing it, when you don't believe you're worthy of it, when you don't believe you're good enough, when you don't believe you're competent enough, when you don't believe you are smart enough, successful enough. All of these beliefs will impact whether or not you choose to take action on your goals. It will impact whether or not you are consistent, whether you set up good habits, whether you take action, and whether you, achieve what it is that you want to achieve. So the way that you view yourself is critical. And if you do have negative beliefs or limiting beliefs about yourself, then you do need to be able to work through those beliefs and start to shift the way that you are viewing yourself. Reframe the way that you view yourself. And when I say reframe, what I really mean is just to view it from another perspective, give it a different meaning than you are currently giving it. So usually the beliefs that you have are also influenced by past events, past circumstances. So when something happens in your life, when there is an emotional event, or when there is, any kind of event that happens that impacts you, usually we try to make sense of that event. We try to rationalize that event by giving it meaning, right? So if one of your relationships fall apart, you're going to give that a certain meaning. So one meaning might be, we broke up because I'm not good enough, I'm a bad partner, I don't deserve this person, I'm never gonna find anyone because this person doesn't love me, so who can love me? That can be one perspective, one lens, one set of meaning that you give to that event. Another way that you could view that is, we just were not compatible, things just didn't work out, we both tried our best, we're just not meant to be together. That's just another perspective, right? So whatever event happens in your life, you give it a certain meaning. If you are able to take that event and view it from another perspective and give it a different meaning, you are able to release those beliefs about yourself and you're able to heal the past, because then you kind of clear that past resentment by forgiving yourself, by understanding, okay, I didn't know any better at the time. I made mistakes. I'm not perfect. I've learned from my mistakes. I've learned that I could have done things differently, but I forgive myself for reacting the way I did, or I forgive myself for, not taking action sooner. I forgive myself for not, giving my best. And through that awareness, you can create a change moving forward. But first, you need to be able to acknowledge where you are at and the areas in which you aren't giving your best. And you need to forgive yourself for that and move forward. So again, it's all about accepting where you are at. You don't necessarily have to like where you are at, but that can be the driving force for you to change. So when you reach this place of self-acceptance, you're no longer concerned with that moralistic judgment of yourself about whether you are good or bad, or about whether you are desirable or undesirable. You stop judging yourself because you've accepted where you are at. And this is very empowering, because then you make peace with where you are at. And if you make peace with where you are at, you're no longer fighting with yourself, you're no longer condemning yourself, judging yourself, pulling yourself down, telling yourself all of these negative things, because your self-talk is so important. The way that you talk to yourself, what you believe about yourself is so, so, so important. And you need to try and keep those beliefs and those thoughts about yourself as positive as possible if you do want to work towards achieving your goals. You can't be talking to yourself negatively. You can't be telling yourself that you're a failure if you want to achieve success. You need to think of yourself as someone that is able to grow and learn and achieve success. Okay, so you don't need that judgment of good or bad in order to see, what is optimal behavior and what is destructive behavior. So you don't need to judge yourself as bad. You don't need to say, I am lazy and therefore I'm a bad person. You can just say, I'm lazy. I accept that I'm lazy. I accept that I don't enjoy moving my body, but that doesn't mean I'm a bad person, right? So you stop judging yourself as bad. You just accept that it is what it is, and then you can move forward from that place, right? So you can say, I'm lazy, right? And that is destructive for my health. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person, but this behavior that I have is destructive towards my health. And so what would be more optimal for my health would be for me to start moving and to be less lazy, to make a consistent effort to create a new habit of moving my body regularly. That doesn't require judgment. That requires acceptance of where you are at, so that you can choose a new way of being, so that you can choose to start being active instead of being lazy. Okay, so this is very, very empowering, and I hope it helps you to work on accepting yourself. And I'm sending you so much peace and love.